been joined by Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya, who is an economist and policy expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. How might these steep duties reshape global solar supply chains and the competitive dynamics between Indian exports and the US domestic manufacturers? How will this shape global supply chains?
Yeah, let's just understand what these tariffs really mean. They are not actually a regular tariff. It is based on the accusation that India is subsidizing its solar industry to the extent that that there is a accusation of 126% subsidy by the Indian government, which means that we are exporting about roughly $750 million worth of solar panels to the US. And that means that about $1 billion of subsidy is being given by the Indian government, which does not make sense. Why would a developing economy subsidize the rollout of clean energy in the US and pay $1 billion to do that? So clearly something is largely amiss in this construct. What is also happening is that there is an affront on free trade. Countries which are competitive in manufacturing solar panels, there is a trade barrier being put in whatever form. So this particular countervailing duty is a preliminary investigation, is based on a preliminary investigation. There has to be a detailed investigation after which the final tariffs will be put in, or what is technically called the countervailing duty. But during the time, there will be a tremendous amount of uncertainty as to what is going to happen, because as I mentioned, 126% really implies and accuses India of spending $1 billion to subsidize clean energy rollout in the US, which does not seem to be a valid accusation. And therefore, it disrupts the production, the supply chain. And India is one of the global value chain producers of solar panels. And therefore, the upstream for solar panels, that also gets impacted. India plays more on the downstream, which is the cell and the module part of it. So ingot and wafering and polysilica is largely imported into this country. It's only now that those capacities are being set up. But India is extremely competitive and efficient in building these solar panels and these modules. And therefore, these imports from India being stopped by countervailing duties is basically stopping free trade. And if that's the case, then all trade breaks down. It's against WTO regime, and then we are back to where we were 100 years back.
And could this trade action strain broader economic and diplomatic ties between India and the United States, especially given recent efforts to enhance cooperation and reduce bilateral tensions?
Well, typically trade remedies continue irrespective of what the bilateral agreements are, because trade remedies are based on the technical term called injury of the domestic industry. So, so that action is irrespective of what are the trade agreements that are going on. Of course, it will have an impact because solar industry is one of the largest upcoming industry in India. So the Indian government and negotiators will take notice of this particular step because of the magnitude of the step. It's not 10, 15%, 20% countervailing duty. It's 126%, which is humongous, and it is disproportionate to what could possibly be happening. Even if there's an accusation of subsidy from the Indian government, it is unbelievable that it will be a 126% subsidy being given, and therefore there will be a shadow, because it will also start questioning as to what is the point in having a trade agreement when it can get violated in various ways under the garb of countervailing duties and so on. And especially also, if you look at in parallel what's happening in India, where anti-dumping duties, which are recommended by the Directorate General of Trade Remedies in India, are getting rejected or lapsed at a higher level. and therefore India is actually not pursuing trade remedies which are at legitimate interest of India, while the US is actually moving forward with trade remedies which are disproportionate and will probably not hold water once the investigations are properly done. So that does cast a long shadow on the overall trade negotiations, because the trade agreement that eventually comes out can get nullified by these kind of steps being taken up by any of the party for that matter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jaijit, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.